We're now going to assemble the various components in the skimmer, mainly the main flow pump and the skimmer. To connect the pump, we have a union connector on the pipe, which we connect up to here. Okay, I'm now going to put this simple elbow onto the inlet of the pump. The elbow should be facing down, and use the quick connector on the hose to connect the pipe. We now just rest the pump into the pump chamber and put the cable out through the hole in the wall, where we'll have all our electrical connections a bit later. We're now going to put the skimmer in position. Again, the wire goes through the hole in the back, and we connect the skimmer hose up here on the skimmer itself. And onto the hose barb on the valve on top. Full instructions for operating the skimmer are supplied separately with the skimmer unit. We're now going to prepare the 3 circulation pumps. First of all, screw the hose barb into the outlet. Take the connection tube and slide it onto the hose barb. Okay, this is now going to go in the back of the pump chamber, and this is going to stick through those holes through the top that you can see. We'll look at that in greater detail in a minute. On the other side, we're going to screw the outlet nozzle, and that holds it up against the glass. Just to understand how this works, this is made up of a number of different parts. We have the bayonet at the front, we have the outlet nozzle, the base, and a seal that holds it all together. First thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the grills. They come in from the back in the pump chamber. Simple bayonet connector and a turn puts it into position. I'll put the others on in a minute. We're now going to collect the nozzle to the main return. You'll notice this one is a lot bigger than the other ones for the regular circulation pumps because it has a much higher flow. First of all, put the seal in position. The base of this one is attached permanently so it doesn't come off. And then simply swivel that bayonet into position. To begin with, point the nozzle down. Only when the aquarium is full of water you can start positioning it to get the flow regime that you want. We're now going to add the first of the flow pumps. As I explained before, you put the pump in the back, push the connector through the glass, and attach the nozzle from the front. Once it's screwed tightly in position, you can freely position the nozzles. To begin with, again, point it down. Now do the same with the rest of the vents and the pumps. The number of vents and pumps depends on the model. There are 2 on the 400, 3 on the 500, and 4 on the 650. For ease of identifying our cables afterwards, we put little labels on every one of the wires. This one indicates the main pump, and this one indicates the skimmer pump. We provide extra labels for the chiller, for the heaters, and for other auxiliary equipment. Similarly, we add labels like this to the circulation pumps, which are all identified by P1 through P4 depending on which model we have.
Okay.
Collect the cables from your circulation pumps and feed them through the special gap here in the top. And then feed the cables down the cable channel that we've put on the back of the glass here. Lock the cables in position with the little plugs provided. Now that we've completed all the work we need to do on the rear pump chamber, we can close this by putting back the pump chamber cover until such time as we need to do some maintenance. We're now going to assemble the doors. You'll see that the doors are suitable but for both left and right side. When you assemble the hinges, just make sure that you do one on the left and one on the right. The hinges we're using are stainless steel hinges with a soft close mechanism. Simply remove the clip off the front, and the first thing we're going to do is attach them to the door itself. On the MDF door I prefer using the hand screwdriver, as it gives me a better feel for what I'm doing. We're now going to attach the doors to the frame. The hinge has 4 holes, 2 oval holes and 2 round holes. We're going to start by attaching the hinge plate with just 2 holes in the oval hole. We'll do both doors. Then we start adjusting our height, and only when we have got everything leveled and perfect do we then put the final 2 screws in to anchor it into its final position. There are 2 sets of holes pre-drilled for the screws that go through the oval hole, so just put the screws directly into those. Okay, so we've completed the first phase of hanging the doors. We've adjusted the height so that they are the same level, and now I'm going to put in the extra 2 screws on every hinge to anchor it properly into position. Then we'll do the fine adjustment to get rid of the gap in the middle. We're now going to prepare the power center for assembly. That means putting the main inlet power cable into the right position and then putting the drawer inside the cabinet on the sliders. To actually assemble it, the sliders have to be in. We'll do that again in a minute. I just want to show you that when you do the assembly, these runners click into position on these 2 blue catches underneath. Once it's assembled, to release it, you just have to press on the plastic catches and pull the drawer forward. So here we go. Inside the drawer you'll find a main supply cable with a computer type connector and your mains connector. Close the lid and put the cable in through the right hand slot. Slide the drawer cover back and you plug the main inlet cable into the right hand inlet socket. When that's in position, close the lid. Now we just pick up the drawer, set it onto the sliders, push it in position until you hear a click. The drawer is now in the correct position for operation. Okay, so we've completed everything apart from the lighting system, and that's the last thing we're going to do. The lighting system is made up of 4 parts. You've got the main chassis that carries the 3 individual light units. There is a T5x2 and moonlight unit that sits inside the chassis, and there is the T5x4 units that sit on the front and the back. We'll start by preparing the center unit. All of the units comes with the tubes unassembled, and there is a protective covering on the lens. So we have to slide the lens out the side and put in the tubes. In the center unit we recommend putting in one 10,000 Kelvin tube and one actinic tube. Then remove the protective covering from the lens, both sides of the lens. Then slide it back into position through the slot in the end plate. You'll notice there are 2 cables, one from either side of the center unit. One of them has a little flag on it showing that it's the daylight, meaning that that's the cable that operates the T5 tubes, and the other cable has a flag showing that it is the moonlight, means that it's operating the moonlights. The next thing we have to do is put the center unit into the chassis, but before we do that we have to remove pins that hold it into position. On the side of the chassis we have to remove this pin with a screwdriver. While we're doing this, we're going to remove these 2 locks on the left and right that will hold the front and back units in position. Okay, before assembling it, I like to make sure that everything is connected properly and it's working, so I plug in the moonlights, and we can see the moonlights are working, and then we plug in the daylights and check that the daylights are working. Okay, we can see everything's okay, so we can carry on. Okay, now take the center unit and carefully slot it in from above, making sure the cable goes through. Make sure the cable goes through the slot provided in the chassis. Then return the securing pin into position. Both of the cables come out at one side. This is now going to be the front of the aquarium. This therefore is the back side. On the bottom of the chassis there is a small piece of plastic that has to be removed on the back side only. Just bend it and tear it off. Later, when we assemble this on the aquarium, the cabling from all of the lighting is going to come out through that part that we've just removed. Okay, we're about to put the chassis with the center unit onto the aquarium. However, we have a locking mechanism to make sure that the complete unit cannot be removed inadvertently. These locks are at the front of this rail here, and by closing it we prevent the unit going in and out. So the first thing we have to do on both sides, left and right, is to open these locks. Raise the chassis above the aquarium so that the legs are above the holes in the rail. Drop it down into position on both sides and slide to the center of the aquarium. We're now going to prepare the T5x4 units, which are identical front and back. First thing we do is remove the lens. The T5x4 unit also has color trim, so I've got to prepare the trim and put it on. There's one piece that slides on the front, and then afterwards we'll put parts on the side. Okay, I've pushed this down so that the color trim is in line with the edge here, and I've used the plastic mallet just to bring it into position, because sometimes it's a little bit of a tight fit. Okay, next thing we do is we put in our tubes. Again, this time it's 2 of each, 2 actinic and 2 blue, and we recommend to install them alternately. White, blue, white, blue, white, blue. Gee, this is easier done from the front, so excuse me. As with the center unit, there is plastic cover, protective cover on both sides of the lens. Remove it. And slide the lens in from the side. I'm now going to plug in the unit to make sure that everything is functioning before we put it into position. And I plug it in. However, this time it doesn't work straight away because there is a micro switch. And in order for the lights to come on, we have to press on the micro switch. And in order to switch it off, of course, as soon as I let go of the micro switch, it switches off. This is now working perfectly. Now that we've put the color trim on the front and put in the tubes and checked that everything's okay, we can put the color trim on the side. On the side there are 2 parts. There's one very small part which remains in position all the time, and another part that we have to remove if ever we want to replace the tubes. This just clicks into position like that. Same thing on the other end. Okay, we're now going to put the front and back units onto the chassis. So the first one we'll do is the front. We just lift it up into position, hold it above the chassis, and lower it slowly into the holes provided. When it's seated, gently lower it down. In a minute, we're going to put the locks on to hold it in position, but it is stable, and you can leave it there without the locks for a few moments. This is the cable that comes from the front T5x4 unit, and so that I can identify the cable afterwards, I put on the label that shows the front unit. I just stick it on. Similarly, I put the similar label that indicates it's the back unit on the other cable. Okay, now that the front and rear units are in position, I return the locks at the front and the back so that they are held properly. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is put the wires correctly into here so that they come nicely out the back. The correct way of wiring is indicated clearly in the manual, but this wire goes through here. There is little clips to hold it in position. And this wire comes through here, and again is pushed into position there, and then we take the two wires and we feed them into the wire channels in the back. So to finish the assembly of the lighting, we just now press into place the side cover, which just clicks into place. Just remember to hold the wires down at the back while you're doing it, and there we are, absolutely done. Okay, the last phase in assembling the aquarium is getting all of the power cables correctly in position into the power center. We do that in two stages. First stage is we put the cables into the back of the drawer. Then I'm going to bring the drawer forward. One at a time, I'm then going to put the plugs into the sockets according to the map that I have here on the lid. The pumps go in this section, the lighting is in the center section, and the rest of the equipment is on the right hand side. Everything on the pumps, they are all individually switched. On the right hand side, all of the other components are individually switched, and the lighting unit is controlled with the dual timers. Okay, I've drawn the drawer forward with all the cables in the back. I bring them forward one at a time, and I plug each one into the correct socket as I want them to be done. And that's the principle. When I'm done, close it up. And that is the complete assembly, top to bottom, of the Max Aquarium. The only thing you have to do now is fill it up with water and enjoy. As you can see, all of that was a few weeks ago. Since then, we filled it with water, we matured the system, and slowly but surely populated it with rocks and with corals and fish, and it is now a fairly well balanced aquarium which hopefully will run nicely for the future. Thank you.